I'd like to welcome you to BeMoreNews.com, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth.
And absent, we need God. Only God can bring us out of this mess.
Good morning. Welcome to the show. I'll be your host. My name is Doni Glover. For years in the Maryland General Assembly, we only had one physician. And I'd like to say that that one physician became a very special and is a very special friend of mine. Now, just to give you a little history about this network, blackusa.news, we launched in December 2020. So going on 2 years in December. But our very first show, the very first person who gave us the opportunity to interview him on this network is about to appear on the show. He comes from a family of civil rights leaders. He is a man of his word. He's very knowledgeable. Besides being a physician, he's an avid runner. I can tell you that when it comes to minority business enterprise, something very near and dear to my heart. When we met in '02, we were actually on opposite sides, but fighting for the same thing. And that was and is how to create better opportunities for what's dubbed as minority businesses. Of course, we prefer Black-owned businesses here in the state of Maryland, here in the city of Baltimore, in Baltimore County, and nationally. Without further ado, I present to you a man who has worked in the ER at Sinai and at other hospitals, who's provided medical care, particularly for those who cannot afford it. And this includes his avid volunteerism at the, oh my goodness, healthcare for the homeless. That's what it is, healthcare for the homeless. You can talk to him about anything and everything. And without further ado, Dr. Dan Morhaim.
Thank you, Doni. Great to be with you. Thank you for doing all the outreach, the strong, independent voice that you provide to the community, to the state, to the nation. And we've been friends for, since at least 2002, maybe before. And I really treasure our relationship.
Well, you've even sat at my sister's table. Not many people have gotten to do that. Well, let's start there in Baltimore County. Well, first of all, how are you?
I think, like many people, I feel I'm fortunate. I feel fine in the little oasis of my life. But there's also so many problems in our community, in the nation, in the world that are really impacting people in very terrible ways. But so I try to do all I can and feel very blessed that I'm able to be relatively insulated from the worst of those things. But we're all impacted. And beyond that, I'm blessed with Shelley, my wife. I've celebrated 47 years of marriage, kind of amazing. Or she says 30 wonderful years. 30 out of 47 is not bad, but we're together. We have 3 adult children and 3 grandchildren. So, but I'm very committed to working on all the issues that you listed and others. That hasn't changed. I was in the legislature for 24 years. It was a great run. It was enough, but I am committed and continue to do all I can in a number of different areas to improve life for our community.
You know, one thing that sticks out to me is the day you introduced me to Dr., now Senator Clarence Lamb. And that's very noteworthy in my book because you were intentional about ensuring that another physician, maybe a couple of days younger than you, would be in the legislature. Why was that important to you?
I think it's important to have people from all walks of life in a general assembly, especially a citizen general assembly like Maryland, where we're in session 3 months a year in civilians to a significant degree the other 8 months. Clarence worked in my office 3 years, and I got to know him well. He's chief of preventive medicine at Johns Hopkins University, which is a pretty significant position. And he was just saw him as a very smart and talented person, encouraged him to run for office. He got elected to the House of Delegates, and then he became a state senator. But I've been blessed, let me share, with a couple of other terrific people who worked in my office. Keisha Pollack, who was a public health grad student, worked in my office, and now she's Dean of Health Policy and Management at Johns Hopkins, really the top of the public health pyramid. Incredible person. And David Fakunle. David also worked in my legislative office. We co-taught at Hopkins. He is, among his many talents, chair of the Maryland Lynching and Reconciliation Commission. He does teaching in public health. So I've been fortunate to have really outstanding people work with me in my time in the legislature. Have gone on to great things.
Let's get to the author side. We didn't even go into it. I don't know if you've seen it. This is my second book here, I Am Black Wall Street.
I did read your first book. Yeah.
But you
I'm
were
looking for my
writing
book.
before I started, and you've always been the biggest encourager. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, if you got a Capricorn, you're a Capricorn, right?
Yes, sir.
If you have a polite bully Capricorn in your life, treasure them. They're going to push you. You'll thank me later. But he pushed me and pushes me to put more of my editorials out there. He insists. And I so appreciate that, Doc, because I'm usually trying to lift up others. But you remind me that I got to lift up myself, kind of like what the flight attendant tells you on the plane in case of emergency and the oxygen mask fall down. The very first person that you need to put that mask on is yourself.
Well, we're all struggling to do better. We all have ways to improve, but you have a skill that's getting lost, which is the ability to write well. You know, we're getting down to the point where 140 characters or 280 characters or short bursts of stuff just don't connect. And so I have written a couple of books. This is the second one. It's about end-of-life care issues, advanced care planning, something I strongly believe in that everybody should
Slow
be
down, put
involved
it
in.
back. Don't
Okay,
rush it.
okay.
Take your time.
It's called Preparing for a Better End. Let me see if I can get it in the screen there.
Let me back out.
Thank you. And the website is thebetterend.com, www.thebetterend.com. And my books have been endorsed by such people as Maya Angelou. Very honored to have her endorse the book. United States Senator Ben Cardin, Dr. Leanna Wen, Dr. Leon McDougall, who has been president of the, as a physician head of the National Medical Association, the Black Doctors AMA, if you will, but he's also a major leader in healthcare in general. Evangelical Christian minister, a Buddhist meditative teacher, a whole bunch of other healthcare people. But what it gets to is something that's really core. We're all mortal. And in our culture, we have an opportunity just by completing free legal paperwork called advance directives. And they're available from a variety of sources. My personal favorite is called mydirectives.com, mydirectives.com, mydirectives.com. And for just completing free legal paperwork, we get to take control of a significant portion of our lives, advanced care front. And we can want to be in denial, and I understand I don't like thinking about death and dying, But the reality is there, and we're the first generation in human history that likely has some say about how, when, and where that happens. Here's the thing: these have been around since 1991. Only 40% of Americans have completed these forms, and it's about half that in the minority and Black populations. And I was the first to identify that with Keisha Pollack, actually, in a paper in the American Journal of Public Health, and define it as a minority health disparity. So I can tell you I got into this because I found myself in the ER doing procedures on people that just didn't feel right, you know. But I wanted to know what they wanted. It's not my job to impose my values or my sense on what people want. This is
Not
about
all doctors
individual
are like
empowerment.
that.
Well, this is about individual empowerment, but if they don't communicate it, if it isn't written down, and these are free forms. I mean, that's, they're legal, been around since 1991, legal forms, but we're so aversive to dealing with this instead of don't complete these forms. So I am on a crusade to do that. I am also on a crusade to end, the war on drugs, which I think is an epic policy failure and has imprisoned lots of people, and not for substance abuse. Let me be clear, but what we've been doing clearly isn't working throughout the country and in our region. The rate of drug use continues, overdose deaths continue, and turning people into criminals for having a medical problem hasn't helped. And at the same time, for those who do commit violent crimes, that's the role of the criminal justice system. But it's fun. We just have not looked at it as much through a healthcare lens as we should have. And a few other issues too.
When I look around my community, particularly the Black community, when I look at Black elected officials, when I look at the dominant community, the Latino community, not many people work themselves out of a job. Some want to die in office. I'm talking about mental health and how our self-esteem can so easily be tied to the title before our name. How are you able to let it go?
Well, I'm subject to that too. So let me say that I'm not immune to that. However, I certainly felt like for me, 24 years in office was enough. It was a great experience, but things like that should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. We are not my name or a delegate in front of it or whatever titles. You are who you are as a person and how you conduct yourself with other people. And there are people with no titles who do great things and are perfectly wonderful. People with lots of titles who I've just, would prefer would go away. So, I think you have to separate your identity from your title and, the accolades that you may or may not have achieved in life, because there are other ways to conduct ourselves. And I think we have a lot to learn as human beings about how this all works. I mean, clearly at this point in our nation, there's a huge divide between folks that can hardly talk to each other, who believe the other side is completely misled. We're out of control in that regard. We have individuals who have gone, crazy and decide that the best way to solve problems is to pick up a gun and shoot somebody else, whether they feel that they have a mental health issue, or they feel like they were disrespected, or drug deals gone bad, or whatever it is. We have a lot of issues to deal with. And I struggle like everybody else, but I think we have to have more discussions about these and look harder in the mirror. The real hard question about drug use is, why are so many Americans turning to drugs for escape? What's going on in our culture that people turn to that? And I understand we all have stress and pressure in our lives. You do, I do, but presumably we're not shooting heroin. But I can tell you, I take care of about it. They didn't know I was in politics or even particularly cared. And they would tell me about their lives, and the dialogue in my head was, gee, if that was my life, it'd be a real struggle for me not to turn to addiction for escape, not to get out of things that way. So we have a lot of work to do. But the first thing to do is, like with all problems, identify the problem and then go try to figure out what to do. And we have a lot of other divides as well, racial divides and religion divides and so forth. And,
so since the pandemic, through the pandemic, maybe it happened before, times gotten jumbled. I started streaming shows. Not here, of course. We started this, but I mean, I started using the Fire Stick, and I came across this show, and it made me think of you. The name of the show is called Resurrection, and the main character, I want to say his name is Ertugrul. And it's a series. And I mean, this is where American series is like 13 shows per season. This one is like 56 shows one season. I don't know. I mean, it's like they just kept filming. But it's about the Ottoman Turks. Do you know anything about the Turkish Empire, the Ottoman Turks?
I know some. Actually, my grandfather was born in Turkey, so I have kind of some information from that. But I don't know the show, so I will certainly look it up.
Did you know that Santa Claus was born in Turkey?
I'm not sure that I don't know. I don't know that. But since I don't believe in Santa Claus per se, I'm not aware of that fact.
He was a saint, and he was black.
Well, Jesus may have been black too, but most people don't like to think of it that way. There's lots of stuff going on around out there. But the interesting thing about Ottoman Turks is there are several things. Is that the Turkish Empire tended to be less discriminatory through its heyday when it controlled not only all of Turkey, but some of Eastern Europe.
And that was through just not long ago, correct?
Not long ago. And then when Kemal Ataturk, after World War I, the Ottoman Empire had collapsed, and Kemal Ataturk rose in the military and repelled, and there's a lot of controversy about all this stuff, the invasion from the Armenians on one side, and all the Armenians certainly have their own perspective on that, and the Greeks and British from the other, Gallipoli being the example of the big battle. He created the Turkish Republic and was able to institute a few things that were significant. One, free elections. Turkey, despite its problems now, is an electoral democracy, the only one besides Israel in the entire Middle East. He created, established freedom of religion and freedom of the press. Some of that doesn't, always work. It doesn't always work here either. But the other one thing he did that was really amazing. Up to that time, the Ottoman Empire language, speaking of writing, was written in, to our eyes, Arabic script, right to left squiggly lines as we would look at it. And he said, this won't do. We have got to switch to the Roman alphabet, our alphabet, essentially. So we got together Turkish linguists, and in a few months, they redid the entire Turkish language. And in writing, the spoken language stayed the same from the Arabic script to our alphabet. Now, can you imagine if in the United States, we all had to suddenly start reading a different alphabet altogether? Let's say Chinese trigrams or Arabic script or Hebrew writing. Pretty amazing.
Is it still right to left?
No, it reads left to right. It's our alphabet.
So you got the alphabet with a few, and they changed the direction.
You change the alphabet, change the direction. They do have some, unique notations like C's with a little squiggly line under it to express some of the sounds that are in Turkish that are not in our standard alphabet. But just think of it this way: within a few months, every document, every legal document, government edict, education in schools, everything, the entire alphabet switched. Pretty remarkable. And it was to bring Turkey into the modern age.
So I want you to give me just a couple of particulars. So Turkey, that was the capital of the Ottoman Turk Empire,
right?
Which extended how far west?
At times into Eastern Europe, Romania.
No, to the west.
That is to the west of
That
Turkey.
is to the west.
Yeah, Bulgaria, Romania. They actually had battles. We can go into this more. I certainly don't want to claim to be an expert on Ottoman history, but let's get back to the present day. But it is an interesting place, and I have visited there.
There's so much culture
Struggling
there.
now, but better in
You
the
got
past.
the Black Sea, the Mediterranean,
Well,
and then
all of what is Israel and Saudi Arabia was all under Turkish rule. All the whole Middle East, Syria, and when the Ottoman Empire was at its peak.
the Ottomans. That's right, the Ottoman Turks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
But let's talk about, yes.
how did you come to be a proponent of minority business enterprise during your tenure? I saw you educate Black elected officials. I won't call names. I'll spare them the embarrassment. But how did you come to be the expert on MBE from my perspective in Annapolis?
Well, I was appointed by the speaker to be chair of the government operations subcommittee, of which that issue was one of the topics. There were others, and the main one was procurement in general, which is a topic that nobody cared to look at. The way I got involved in procurement was a little peculiar. There was a issue that was public aid to private schools, $6 million, not a big sum of money, but very controversial many years ago. And what I was witnessing and in and saying, hey, this money should stay in the public schools. I mean, our kids go there, and why should we fund private schools? And the private school parents came in and said, the state requires us to do certain things, and you should give us some money for that. And then there were people who had one kid in a public school and one kid in a private school for different reasons. So I was, basically what I was seeing was parents advocating for their children's education, but they had become pitted against each other in this battle over this money. And so I asked the question, there must be another way to deal with this. And at that time, Maryland has 24 counties and counting Baltimore City, and they were all buying things separately. So whether it's basketballs or chalk or blackboards or desks, they were all going out and buying. I said, well, why don't we all buy together? I grew up in Los Angeles, and we didn't have those divisions. I mean, I had a friend who lived 30 miles away. We didn't see ourselves as different. I moved to Maryland many years ago, and there's East Baltimore, West Baltimore, Baltimore County, Pikesville, Essex. It's like they're disconnected, but they were so close. So I put in a bill to combine to allow the schools to all buy things together, and include the private schools if they wanted to piggyback on it. And people rallied around that. And it ended up saving much more money than $6 million a year, because I tracked it for quite a few years. And the private schools in my district would just call up Baltimore County Public Schools and say, what are you buying? And they'd say, and they said, well, we'll take some of that, but just deliver, different delivery over here. And we'll pay. And everybody's getting discount, because no rocket science here. Bulk purchasing usually saves money. So the then Speaker, Mike Bush, liked that. He said, we don't have anybody that's looking at procurement. He created the Health and Government Operations Committee, put all of health in one place. It had been in a couple of different committees, and said, you should share government operations, and government operations included procurement. And that's how MBE became part of it, Minority Women Business Enterprise. Then I had to learn a lot about that, but I'd also built a business along the way. And I've always been sympathetic and understanding that business is a way that people lift themselves up, contribute to their community. Economic prosperity is a good thing, and it should be everywhere. And the more it is everywhere, the better. The rising tide floats all the boats. And then I talked to people like you, who schooled me and learned me on a lot of stuff. And we sat down and had a lot of discussions, as I did with other people, and became very convinced that MBE programs were worthwhile, ought to be supported, and the legislation has to be crafted in a way that works. So that's how I got involved, and
Yes,
I'm glad I did a lot of things. And one year, by the way, Doni, minority business law ends every 5 years automatically, because you have to do a thing called a disparity study to prove that it needs to continue. And one year I was waiting for somebody to step up and put in the renewal bill, but I was the only one paying attention that it was going to expire. So at the last minute, because there's timing in the General Assembly, I went down to the legislative drafting office in the last hour of the last day you could get a bill in, and I said, I'll file that bill. And I became the lead sponsor of the MBE bill one year. So that was just an anecdote on the side.
Thank you for caring. Thank you for bringing, as you were describing Dr. Clarence Lamb, now Senator, I was looking for a word for both of you, conscientious. It's one thing to be smart, but, to have a conscience, to be aware. So look, we have a question from Loretta Carter. I'll let you handle it.
Getting back to advanced directives, how do you start an advanced directive, and should this be done when you do your will? Yes, it could be done when you do your will, but you should do it anyways. Everybody over the age of 18 should be completing advanced directive. There are many sources. You can get them from any hospital. You can get them from the state of Maryland Attorney General website. If you have strong faith orientation, like Catholic or Islamic or Jewish, you can get them from those places. But my personal favorite, and the one that's been authorized by the state of Maryland to be the entity that circulates advanced directives, living will, medical power attorney, is called My Directives, mydirectives.com. It's free, it's online, very simple, like most things online. Type in mydirectives.com, just spell it out just like it sounds, mydirectvies.com. And then, you create a name and a password, and then it walks you through the entire process. And it has some really excellent features. For example, you can upload a video if you want to leave a message about your healthcare, or leave a message for your kids and grandkids. If you have an advanced directive from another source, you can post it into that. I personally think their forms are really excellent. So people need to complete the forms. Then they need to be available. And actually, this last session, the Maryland General Assembly did pass model legislation, which I hope spreads to all the United States, to have that information available. Because as a clinician, somebody comes in and they're really sick, and I don't know, the advanced directive not only is how much care they want, but who do I call? And especially with COVID, when families aren't at the bedside. So who do I call about the person that's in front of me? What kind of care extensive care should I be giving? Should I give advanced care, mild care? What is going on here? What's their medical history? That has to be made available. So this is a document that you want to have readily available, not hidden in a filing cabinet somewhere, not in a safe. This ought to be circular. My advanced directive I've given to all my family members, and I have my directives allows printing out a little QR code, which I carry in my wallet and in the glove compartment of my car. So if I have a car accident, they can just scan it and get all the information they need.
I gotta tell you, Doc,
and that's the way to do it.
As a son of an undertaker, we avoid this damn conversation.
We do. And look, it wasn't easy running for election. And Delegate Morhaim, what are you working on? I'd go through the usual issues and say, now I'd like to talk about death and dying. Your death, the death of everybody you know. And don't forget to vote for me in the next election. I got elected 6 times, 12 elections, because out here in Baltimore County, we had general elections. So it wasn't like some areas where you win the Democratic or Republican primary and you coast to victory. So I won 12 times. But people came up to me and said, thank you for talking about a taboo topic. It's like somebody talking about breast cancer, or a kid with ADD, or someone with substance abuse in your family. We don't share those things, and this is a universal thing.
Loretta, there's a link on the side.
There we go, Loretta. Thank you.
If you want to come on, see this link right here, Loretta? You just click that if you want to come on. Well, let me give her a response.
Yeah. Thank you, Loretta, for your comment.
And Doc, we're dealing with this a lot now with the pandemic. I mean, everybody has experienced more death than ever before in a concentrated period of time. Everybody.
Well, this is about planning, and we can put our heads in the sand, or we can take advantage of free legal forms that are available throughout the United States. And then, frankly, like clinicians we need to learn to honor them. But it all starts with the individual, and nothing legal needs to happen. It's all done. You just got to look in the mirror and say, I'm going to take care of this. And then I'm going to tell my family members and my neighbors and everybody that I hang out with to do this. I mean, it should become normative. I think of other things. Many years ago when I was a little kid, when my mother drove the car, there weren't seatbelts. She put her foot on the brake. She reached her arm out to hold me from flying into the dashboard. Now we all wear seatbelts. If I go in a car and I don't have a seatbelt on, I feel, you know, uneasy, even if I'm just
Well,
driving down the driveway.
well, it
It's
was a
weird.
different kind of
We get
car.
used to it.
It was a different kind of car back then.
That's true.
Those cars were steel. If you hit somebody, it was a different wreck. Today the cars just fold all up. Back then, oh my God, I remember my grandma. She wouldn't give up driving. She hit somebody. They ended up on the lamppost. They see her coming. You better get out, move off the block.
Yeah, a
Grandmama
lot of
had
a
you.
lot of car design is safer, and I've seen a lot of victims of car accidents in my medical career, and I don't see some of them anymore because of the safety features in cars. Not that we couldn't do more, but seat belts, airbags, and baby seats have made a huge difference. But an advanced directive is like a seat belt. You could drive around without a seat belt, you'd probably be okay. But if you have a seatbelt and there's an accident, it's probably going to help you from minor injuries, may save you from major injuries. But there's some car accidents that won't make a difference at all. An advanced directive is a seatbelt, and we ought to take advantage of it. And in the minority community, the Black community, which has had an experience in the healthcare system of not getting proper care, maybe being bullied into different kinds of care situations, not being given full information, this is an opportunity for empowerment and control. And all you have to do is complete free paperwork.
Let
You
me
gotta sit
put a
down and think about it, but do it. You got to do it.
let me put a plug in for
And that's what my book is about. If you want to know the full picture, it's available from most libraries. Buy it online, whatever. And I do talk. So if you want me to talk someplace, anybody that's listening, community group, church, whatever, I'm available.
Professor. You're a professor at Hopkins.
I used to be 16 years. It's good thing too. Taught public policy there.
Okay, yesterday in our pre-interview, you were asking me what I'm thinking, and I wanted to share with you. I wouldn't dare share it privately. I'm only going to give you a snippet, but this is the first time in history, as far as I know, that you got a Black man running for governor, attorney general, and comptroller. First time ever. Baltimore County, in terms of county executives, has only had white males. Am I correct?
I'm pretty sure you're right. Yes.
This would be the first time if Westmore, Tim Adams, and Anthony Brown were to win, it would be historic. And I just think it's important in a state like Maryland that's so Democrat, 2-1 Democrat. Baltimore City's 9-1 Democrat. But we don't have any Black U.S. senators. It's just so much that has not happened. And then I look across the aisle and I'm seeing the Republicans push the envelope like the Democrats ought to be pushing the envelope. And so that's what's important to me. Anthony Brown over with Katie O'Malley. People are going to ask, where was Katie O'Malley when Martin O'Malley was locking up 1 and 6 Baltimoreans? She sat quietly by, nothing to say, and now you want to be attorney general.
I'm not going to get involved in that one, but
I know you like Brooke Learman.
I will say I'm for Brooke Learman. I'm committed to Brooke Learman. I work with her for a number of years in the legislature. She understands state government. She understands finances. Her heart's in the right place.
But she didn't understand Black media when she came on the show, because I asked her if she was going to carry, forward similar to Peter Franchot when it came to Black business, minority business. The comptroller is one of 3 important votes on that Board of Public Works, and she really had no answer. And I was befuddled. I was flabbergasted. I couldn't understand. She now has an answer, but it's kind of like, you get one time to make that first impression, and she can say it now.
I've
but
known
you
her.
Lived it. See,
I've known her.
Talk about it. You lived it, and so there's a difference.
Look, I'm nothing against Tim Adams. I don't know him. He seems like a good person. He's done some good things.
Well,
But I am
Brooke
for.
was out
I
working.
think we have good choices here, which is better than some of the other times we've been in. And Brooke is just an excellent candidate, in my opinion. But that's okay. We're entitled to disagree here on this. I think she's a solid person. I can't account for whatever she may have
Well,
said with you months ago or whatever.
she
But
has an advantage.
she's done a lot of good things, and I think she knows the issues and has a good understanding of state government, which is really what's involved here,
I
is
think she's
running that
dealing with
agency.
something that Fran's show is. You can't wait until you're going for the next higher position to establish relationships you should have had all along.
Well,
If you ran for governor, you don't have to say anything because you've done the work. I've seen you do the work.
well,
I've
thank you.
seen white guys try to stop you from doing the work. And don't make me call names.
I won't. That's true. But let's leave the names out now. I'm 3 years out of office. I love being a civilian, so I don't have to get involved in those
You're a veteran. You're
phrase.
not a civilian. You're a veteran.
Veteran, yes.
Veteran of of local wars.
I got the scars to prove it, but I got a lot done, and I always tried to approach work
That's what I love about
open-minded, and
you.
that's
You
all I
won't
can
be
do.
bullied. You won't let you will not be bullied. We need that. We need that in our legislators. And so let me just go back to one of the previous questions about how you were able to transition out of politics when quite often people want to die in office. Too often I see people running for office who don't have who don't have their finances together. So running for office becomes like the family business. And so grandma, the nieces, the great nephews, the cousins, everybody wants to get Joe Blow back in office because Joe Blow feels like that's his or her destination, their station in life. You know, a name comes to me, and you might laugh. Her name is, I want to say Nikki Haley. She used to work for Trump in the Trump administration.
Yeah, she was a governor of, I think, South Carolina, and was United Nations rep under Trump.
After a certain
Very
period
Trump
in
person.
office, she says she wanted to leave because she didn't want to make that her lifelong job.
Mm-hmm.
And she wants to do other things, but it's rare that people step away from the computer. You were able to do it, and I can't say that I know all of her politics, but her reasoning for stepping away, you got to give somebody else a chance. But in my community, better for worse, people want to die in office. Pass the damn ball. You pass the ball. Clarence Lamb is not Turkish. Clarence Lamb is a physician. You pass the ball to another physician. How noble is that?
Well, and there's also Terry Hill, another physician who's in the legislature, who's doing a good job. Look, those are personal decisions, but citizens vote for these folks. And if you don't like the people in office, run against them or support their opponents. But a lot of family things are family politics. There's family in media. There's family in Hollywood. A lot of the Hollywood stars, it's second, third generation.
But some of them shouldn't be passing the ball of family. They suck, and their kids gonna suck too.
Well, I don't have to buy tickets to their movies, and I don't have to vote for them, and neither do you. But if you think they're qualified, so be it. But there is a definitely family tradition, and I do believe, for me, politics has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that was enough for me.
So look, Loretta,
and you can continue to make a difference in other ways. You don't have to be in elected office. I mean, you make a huge difference. You're not in elected office. You persuade a lot of people. You raise a lot of ideas. You have great discussions, and we can agree on many things, disagree agreeably on other things, and that's fine. And I learned from our discussions. I hope I impart something to you. You always impart something to me, and it's fine. That's okay. I mean, Shelley and I have been married a long time. Doesn't mean we agree on every single thing all the time. We have plenty of disagreements, but we stay in relationship. And it's the relationship that's critical. And it's where our fractured relationships, where people have gone off the deep end accusing others of terrible things where they're just having disagreements on issues. Abortion might be one, gun control, all these things are complicated issues. I did want to call your attention to an article in the New England Journal of Medicine that appeared just yesterday on, it's called Navigating the Loss of Abortion Services. And it's not taking a position on the issue itself, but it is going through a physician's perspective, although it's a very readable article for anybody. You don't have to be a physician to read this article and understand it. What some of the implications of the big move to change state laws on abortion services and potentially the Supreme Court decision undoing Roe versus Wade, how much that'll change things.
Are these Republican states?
Yes, overwhelmingly. And they have installed very extreme bills. In some cases, I think Oklahoma, anything that happens after the conception occurs could put people at risk of criminal penalties.
Doc, what's
and I will tell you, as an ER doctor, women, 20% of pregnancies end up in miscarriages. That's nature, natural miscarriages. And my wife, Shelley, we have 3 kids. She had 2 miscarriages along the way. This is not uncommon. And yet you could have a miscarriage and be accused of a crime. That's wrong.
What's at the root of this? What's really behind this? Is this about the browning of America?
Well, that may be an element of it, but I think it's also, men trying to tell women what to do.
In 2022?
Yeah. Look, if nature, God, evolution wanted men to have control over babies, he would have given us uteruses, but he gave uteruses to women. And we ought to respect that. And let me say we really have to be respectful of that, and also respect that motherhood is a tremendously powerful instinct.
In 2022, we're having this discussion.
I'm afraid we are, because legislation's been introduced. I mean, it gets very complicated medically, but let me give you another example.
The hypocrisy in this.
I think so. And it affects minorities, since you care about minority women. Let me just read one thing. Under this new set of regimes, and I'll quote from the article, maternal mortality will increase by 21%, echoing existing disparities of 13% among whites and 33% among Black women.
Okay, are you saying that Black women get more abortions?
No, this is if there's more unwanted pregnancies, the maternal mortality rate among Black women will increase substantially.
Okay, but you got to.
But also because people would, if all this happens, Roe v. Wade is undone, and women do want abortions, which is a very personal, intense decision. It's not a decision anybody goes into casually or flippantly, which seems to be an allegation out there. If you have money, you could travel if you live in Texas or Florida, you could travel, and you have money, you come to Maryland to get that abortion. But if you're poor, chances are you're going to end up in trouble in the state that you're in if you try to do that.
Okay, and, Doc, I got to throw this.
So there's a poverty issue. There's a whole set of issues there.
Come on, Doc. Now I can be a bully too. Listen.
Bully away.
When Margaret Sanger formed Planned Parenthood, now I asked you already, why are these Republican states, pushing anti-abortion, going back to challenge Roe v. Wade? Is the browning of America important? In the Black community, Margaret Sanger said that Black children were like weeds that needed to be exterminated. She created Planned Parenthood, and what we know is that we have more Planned Parenthood clinics in the Black community, more abortion clinics in the Black community than we find anywhere else. And Planned Parenthood even is in Africa. And they always say we're expanding health services, but they're pushing abortion.
I think they promote birth control. 95% of what Planned Parenthood does is actually primary health care and and women's health care.
But you
Small
can't
percentage
negate
is the
that
other stuff.
history. You
So,
can't erase what
so
you
you're
saw.
suggesting that
She
being
started off wanting to
being
exterminate black people.
so well, I don't know that.
I know
But
that Charles
that's fine.
Darwin, they teach it at your medical school. Charles Darwin came up with survival of the fittest. His cousin was Charles Dalton. Dalton was her mentor, Margaret Sanger, and she
So,
tricked
so you're
Dr. King and
let's bring it up
W.B.
to
Du
now.
Bois.
So you're suggesting that we should be against abortion laws
I didn't
because
say that.
because
I did
it'll
not say
create
that.
more black
I
kids.
did not say that.
Okay,
I'm
what are you
looking
saying?
at the historical point that
Okay,
there are more abortion clinics in the black community, significantly more. Abortions have killed more black people than all of the guns.
the point here, from my perspective, is that these are personal decisions to be made between a woman and her doctor and her group of advisors that she feels. And that's, I mean, I see it because I see patients one at a time. And I don't think anybody that makes whatever decision they make in this arena needs to be turned into a criminal, nor should the clinicians who are taking care of it. But that's what these laws do. That's what these laws do. If you gave somebody a referral to a Planned Parenthood a clinic or in a place where a woman could get an abortion, you lived in Texas, you could be arrested by a bounty hunter. I mean, that's just wrong. I understand there's a lot of different kinds of feelings about abortion, but come on, that's
what
not
does
right.
it say about us as a country? You got Donald Trump and J6ers scaling the walls of the Capitol, breaching security, breaking through the window. One woman was shot climbing through a window. They're sitting in Nancy Pelosi's chair, trying on her clothes. I mean, you got, this is civil war. That was 1865. This is 157 years later. And with this abortion thing, we haven't learned anything in our history.
Well,
it's like we're getting dumber. I thought it was just the black community.
Right. Look, there's discussions, and I'm sorry, this is just speculation, but if the rioters who were insurrections against the Capitol were black people, they might have been shot. Yeah. And, how can the police arrest the guy, and I don't use their names because I don't think they deserve their names mentioned, but the guy who shot the people in the church in Carolina, they arrested him. They didn't shoot him. They didn't kill him. They arrested him. They arrested other mass shooters in Buffalo. But you're selling some singles and cigarettes and they managed to kill you, or allegedly passing bad checks, they managed to kill you. So there's clearly disparities in how law enforcement works. So, you have an armed guy who's just killed people and they managed to arrest them without hurting them. But George Floyd, it's unbelievable. So, I get that.
See, that's why we needed you to stay in politics selfishly, because we needed you as governor.
Well, I'm flattered that you would think that, and I appreciate that.
I would vote for you.
Well, I don't think I have the fire in the belly to take that job on.
What about county executive? Johnny Olszewski ready to run for governor next time around?
Nah.
Who you got out there lining up? Who's lining up to be the next county exec out there?
Julian Jones, Izzy Patoka, and there may be some others who will show up. Who knows? It's years away. Lots can happen. I try not to predict the future about politics. That's just never paid off.
Izzy is a competitor.
Huh?
Izzy is a competitor.
And so is Julian Jones. He's chair of the county council. And he's a good guy and done a good job. Huh?
He came out of Dunbar. We know that he's a competitor.
He's done a good job.
And redistricting has occurred. So now Izzy Patoka has part of Julian's old district, which includes Liberty Road below the Beltway.
I had to go through campaigns. My district changed. I had to campaign in areas that I didn't represent, and it's up to the candidates to get out there and do it. But Cheryl Pasteur in District 11 B is running unopposed. She's great. She's an excellent person. Our team supported her when she ran for school board. She was principal of Randallstown High School. So she was on the school board. She knows education. She knows a lot of other issues. So she's a sure winner, and I think that's a positive.
Tell me more about Dr. Cheryl Pastor. What makes her so special?
I think her experience and commitment. Being principal of a high school, a successful, largely minority high school. And
see, listen, I like the way she talks. She articulates.
I like her. Yeah.
She is one articulate woman.
She is indeed. And when Baltimore County a number of years ago had elected school board, our team supported her, and I supported her. She's running unopposed, so that's nice for her. I never had that luxury. I had to campaign every election, and I campaigned hard every time.
Tell me about Ricerstown Road, Owens Mills. We have Wegmans there now, and I could just get a room inside of Wegmans, particularly in the produce section. You just put me I could just live there. I love Wegmans, but CJ's is destroyed.
Let me switch you to another topic that's local and important, if I can. You may not be aware of the Pikesville Armory redevelopment. It's pretty local, 14 acres of land, a bunch of huge buildings. And my wife happens to be chair of the Pikesville Armory Foundation. And that's got a diverse board, which includes Cheryl Pasteur and a number of other people. And this will be a big project that'll impact Baltimore County and Baltimore City in the Northwest. There's very little open space. There's no parks in Pikesville. The potential there it'll be hopefully a public-private partnership. There can be arts, businesses, a revitalization. So that's a huge issue. And it's pretty exciting. It's going to take years to achieve. This is not an overnight sensation, but the buildings are enormous. There's a non-commissioned officers club there, so it services veterans as well, and that's the one continuing piece of it. But there's a whole range of activities that could be done there, and this has been a big effort for quite a few years now, and we're pretty excited. It'll take time. There's still a lot of hurdles to go through, but we've got support from the federal government, the state government, the county government. There's a lot of legal complexities, but hopefully that'll turn into a exciting arena. They'll help Randallstown, Owings Mills, Pikesville, Northwest Baltimore City. We'll see how it goes.
I got a question for you. With such a full life, doctor, politician, author, let me back up, husband, father,
grandfather
now, God bless you. Where in the world did you find time to volunteer at healthcare for the homeless? Dealing with people, and these aren't people coming in with Gucci cologne on.
No, they weren't. I did that one day a week for 3 years, and I was on the board for a couple of years. What I appreciated about it, well, actually, I think I did some good, but I learned so much, and I'll tell you why. My job there was intake. People will line up for their first visit, and I was the screening doctor. And the thing that I appreciated about it was that I was never rushed. I could, you go to a doctor's office, even when I go to my own primary care doctor, the clock's ticking at 15 or 20 minutes. I could sit and talk to people for 20, 30, 40 minutes, an hour, if I chose, and no one was banging on the door. It was mainly Black men, not exclusively, but mainly, most of whom had criminal records, been in jail, sometimes for extended periods. I could ask them.
Why would you do this? That's not normal.
Trying to help
in Baltimore, the homeless segregation. That's not normal.
Well, when I would talk with them, I would say, "Tell me about your life. How did you get into this?" And some of them told me about, really horrible crimes they had committed. I mean, murders they had committed, uh, things like that, as well as other stuff. But they were all people. And I also talked to one guy who'd been a major drug dealer, and had got out of jail after 25 years. He went in when he was like 29. He was 50 something. I said, "Well, what were you making?" And he told me about his operation and how it worked. I mean, where do you get this information? It's just him and me in the room. So I said, "You can tell me anything. I'm not writing it down, and I'm not the police." And he said he was taking home $25,000 a week tax free in 1990 dollars. So it clued me to just how much money is in the drug trade. And there was a hearing in Annapolis where I asked Baltimore County State's Attorney and a Baltimore City major how much crime in Baltimore is due to drugs. And they answered, and I can send you the link, so I'm not making this up. I can document this. And they said upwards of 90 to 95%. So that's what got me interested in not criminalizing people for simple possession of drugs, because almost all these folks said that was the first thing that got them in trouble. They made a bad decision when they were young. They weren't hurting anybody at that point. Now, people who hurt folks, it's a different category. But just possession of a joint or something like that, and then they got an arrest, and the doors to employment, housing, education closed, and the doors to other things opened.
But you haven't answered the question. Why do you care?
I think that's how I was raised, actually. My parents
Ah,
were activists in these things, civil
oh,
rights
your
movement.
parents were activists?
I grew up in Los Angeles. I remember there was the grape, Cesar Chavez, and the grape boycott for the farm workers. And I remember, getting a picket sign in my hand outside the grocery store when I was 9 years old.
Coretta Scott King marched with him, didn't she?
I think she did. So did other people. My parents knew Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta. And there was a movie called Harvest of Shame, which was made by Edward R. Murrow and showed the plight of the farm workers in the United States. And my mother would go around and show this movie, and I would, be dragging the reels along with her. The big film cans you had back in the day. There wasn't video, right? So,
You
and I would
finally
go
answered
with
the
her, and
question
she'd show the movie and
indirectly.
give a
It
little
was your
talk.
mom. It
And
was
my
your
and my
mom.
and my stepfather. My stepfather. My father was kind of out of the picture. But my stepfather was a labor union organizer.
What do you think of fatherhood? We're going into Father's Day season.
I think we have a lot of work to do. I just noticed a seminar coming up. How do we raise boys better? I know that, we men have to confess that we have just a little too much ego and male identity that's become toxic. And I like being, male and male empowerment and that kind of thing. But we've gone just a little too overboard collectively. And I think we have to learn to be good humans and good fathers and good men in contributory, supportive ways that's not generally manifested in our culture or in the media that surrounds us. I mean, most of
One
our
last
heroes are guys
question.
slinging guns and dominating and stuff like that, and that's not really where we want to be.
One last question.
Sure.
I'm always getting on the athletes. Baltimore produces a lot of superstars. They go on, make a lot of money, but the give back is ridiculously poor. Any thoughts on, and you mentioned fatherhood, on us parents pushing our young people into sports because we are vicariously wanting to live through them? Any cautionary tales?
I'll leave that one to you, but obviously that's a very low percentage uh, activity. I mean, I like sports, but there's no way I was ever going to be a pro athlete, no matter how much anybody pushed me to play. So I think, for those who are super gifted, great. But for the rest of us, find the other things. Be a media guy, be a doctor, be a nurse, be an engineer, be a teacher, be a business person. There's so many exciting things to do, and you can do more than one.
Okay, how many miles did you run today?
I will be running about 6 miles tomorrow. On weekends, I do a longer run. Typically, I run 3.5 miles 3 days a week, do yoga once a week, and weights once a week. Today's kind of a half day rest day because I'd worked out hard yesterday, and I will do a long run tomorrow.
I'm
6, 7
honored and
miles,
proud to know you,
6, 7 miles.
Dr. Dan
Not bad for an
Morhaim.
old man. And I run in charity 5Ks, which are a lot of fun. People are out there, good causes. Those are just a lot of fun.
Plug that book before we go.
The book is Preparing for a Better End, and it's available through the website thebetterend.com. Thebetterend.com has all the information there.
Go to book.
Buy the
Go to
book,
book.
get on a library. Here's the book. This will help you. It's really a practical guide. It's not preachy. It's not theory. These are the kinds of things that could happen to you or your loved ones when they get sick. And here's some of the choices you might be called on to make. And if you know about them in advance, you'll be more informed and better able to deal with it and deal with the healthcare system in a way that's consistent with your wants and your values. It's about empowerment. It costs nothing. Take advantage of this. But you got to look in the mirror and say, that's the person that's going to complete this advanced directive form, because nobody else can do it for you, only you. So makes you think about some things about life and meaning and what's important, who you really trust to make decisions if you can't make them for yourself. But if you don't do that, chaos will ensue, conflict will ensue, and I've seen it play out in my life as a doctor just too many times. So take advantage of it. Take advantage of it.
If people want you to speak to their group, how can they reach you?
You can see my name there, Dan Morhaim, just danmorhaim@gmail.com. No dots and no spaces in between. DANMORHAIM @gmail.com.
Are you sure you didn't have to bribe Maya Angelou to? Did you really know her?
I really knew her, and actually, if you look at page 8 and 9 of Heart of a Woman, 7 or 8 or 9, you'll see a story of Maya Angelou and my parents when she was going to rent a house in Los Angeles.
I did not know this part.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you. So we were friends with her when she was in Los Angeles, and I used to play with her son. In fact, he used to be dropped off at our house because she was a nightclub singer. And I remember her, 6-foot tall woman, and I was 8 years old, 9 years old.
She was a nightclub singer.
Yeah, before she became the famous Maya Angelou. But anyway, in this story, she goes to rent a house, and the landlord calls her up. She calls up and says, "The house available?" He says, "Yeah." She shows up, says, "Oh, it's just rented right now." Obviously, he saw a Black woman. He didn't want to rent to her. So my parents, Joe and Atara Morhaim, she misspelled our last name, but it's my parents, because there's not too many Joe and Atara Morheims out there. They go over there, and my dad goes up. This is my biological father, who stepped out of character and really did something good here, and said, "Well, I'm going to rent a house." The landlord says, "Okay." So I got to get my wife to sign the lease. She's in the car. So he takes Maya Angelou's in the car. He takes the lease in. She signs it, and they start carrying her stuff in. And the landlord says, "Wait a minute, you can't do that." And my father says, "You bastard, she has every right to move in." And that's how we became friends with Maya Angelou.
Man,
Years later,
that's the most beautiful story ever.
I was at a conference with her. She was the speaker, and I was in the front, just there as her guest. She invited.
You've been holding back, man.
Well, I got better stuff than that, but let me tell you. So when I met her once when she was in town here for a concert, and my family had lunch with her. That was written up, and then when we wrote the book, Shelley and I wrote the first book. I'm going to finish this one. We're running low on time here, but we wrote the first book. I said, "Who can I get in touch with?" So I thought, well, maybe Maya Angelou would do this. So I write an email, because I don't have her email, but I write to her agent. 30 minutes later, she calls me on the phone. I can't believe it. We talked for like 20 minutes, like we're old friends. I mean, to talk, and I still have her voicemail on this one, by the way. I keep it on my phone. I play for you. She says, "Look, this is great. Why don't you and your wife come down? My staff, get in touch with my staff. Come down and stay with me for a couple of days. I live in North Carolina." She was teaching at Wake Forest. So we arranged it. We went down there, and we spent several days sitting around the table with Maya Angelou. We went back a number of times over the years. And I left her the book, and she said, "I don't endorse stuff, but I'll read your manuscript." She called me up, and I still have this voicemail on my phone. And she said, "I love your book. My staff will send you quotes. Use one of them." And the last time I was there, although my wife and daughter went back afterwards, we come into the house, and it's and we stay there for 2 or 3 days at a time. These aren't like just an hour. I mean, just sit with her all day, and people are coming. So we get there. It's Nikki Giovanni, Maya Angelou, Shelley, and me.
I love
and
Nikki
we had
Giovanni.
dinner.
at Spelman.
Yeah. So just sitting around the table having conversations with those two amazing, brilliant, creative people. It's one of the highlights of my life. And to be in Maya Angelou's presence, just the way she conducts herself, it's transformative to be in her company. And and the way she relates to people and thinks about people and talks about people, and the kindness, but the seriousness that she approaches everything. By the
She
way, if
said
you say
when
a swear word in her house, you'll be asked to leave. If you're disrespectful to anybody in any way, you'll be asked to leave. There's certain rules about being with Dr. Angelou. And it was, by the way, wasn't first name, it was Dr. Angelou, Ms. Giovanni, Mrs. Morhaim, Dr. Morhaim. And her staff who was there was always called by their, with a title, Mr., Miss, Mrs., something like that.
when they
So
show you
she's
who
great.
they are, believe them. When they show you
That's
who they
right.
are, believe them the first time. Doc, we got to go. We've gone over.
Take a look at Heart of a Woman, page 8. Story's right there.
Love you
Thank you,
dearly, Dr.
Donnie.
Dan Morhaim.
Be
Stay
well.
tuned
Thank you,
for
everybody.
the morning show. Donnie Glover Road. Have a great weekend, everybody. Drink water.